The disappearance we're going to talk about today is chilling. Imagine a young mother coming home late one night after a trip to the ER for a minor illness. The next day, she is missing. That is just the beginning of the strange and unsettling things that would happen in this case over the next several years. Sadly, 30 years later, there is still no resolution. Let's talk about Charlotte Nagy Pollis. Before we begin talking about this case, I want to take a moment to thank the person who has helped to make my article, and now this podcast, extremely detailed and based on the facts of the case. It is Charlotte's brother, Ali Nagy. He worked as a Trumbull County Reserve deputy, and then when his sister went missing, transitioned over, volunteering his time for the next 26 years with the Girard Police Department. He worked hand in hand on his sister's case with the detectives to try to get justice for her. Much of what I will talk about here will come from his recollections and theories on the case based on his investigation over the years. He has left no stone unturned and has worked tirelessly, even to this day, to not let his sister's disappearance go forgotten, and I want to thank him for taking the time to speak with me. Charlotte Pollis was born on July 4, 1965. She grew up in a large, close-knit family and was the oldest of 6 children. Charlotte was a very loving and caring person with a huge heart who loved to bake and do crafts. She met Paul Pollis through a friend around 1985. They would eventually marry and have a daughter, Layla, and a son, Aiden. Although Charlotte's family was not thrilled with Paul, as he seemed to be the controlling type, they had no reason to think anything was really wrong. That was until March of 1994. Charlotte was feeling ill on March 11th, 1994. She had previously made plans to go out that Saturday night and celebrate her brother Ollie's birthday. However, she phoned Ollie's wife earlier in the day and told her she wasn't feeling well and would reschedule. Charlotte continued to feel poorly throughout the day and was suffering from dizziness as well. The decision was made that night to take her to the ER. Paul arranged for his parents to watch the children, and he drove Charlotte to the ER. She was diagnosed with an inner ear infection, given some medication, and sent home. She was also given a prescription to be filled. After arriving home late and speaking to her mother by phone around 1:30 a.m., Charlotte went to bed. That was the last time her mother would ever speak to her. At around 8:30 a.m. the next morning, Charlotte's mother tried to phone her daughter to check on her. They were normally in constant contact and were very close as they would help her with her young children. Charlotte was a big help to her parents as well. Paul answered the phone and said that Charlotte was still asleep. He told her mother he would have Charlotte phone her when she woke up, but that phone call would never come. After hearing nothing from her daughter, later that morning, Charlotte's mother called the house repeatedly. There was no answer. She kept trying throughout the day, concerned about her sick daughter. There was still no answer, which meant Paul wasn't home either. Charlotte's aunt even went to the Pollis' house that day to try to contact Charlotte and knocked on the door, but the house appeared empty. Then around 7:30 p.m., Paul called the Nagy family. He said he was concerned because Charlotte was gone. Paul claims that when he woke up on March 12, 1994, Charlotte was in bed. He said he spoke to her and told her to go back to sleep, that he had some errands to run and would take the children with him. He claims he was gone from about 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. with them. However, Charlotte's mother said she had phoned the house before 11 a.m., when Paul claims he would have still been home, and there was no answer. He stated he made many stops, the scrapyard, laundromat, pharmacy, fast food restaurant, and drove around town looking at houses to buy. When he arrived home, he said he noticed Charlotte was gone. The couple only had one vehicle, and Paul had been using it all day. But her purse and medicine were still there. The only thing that was missing was Charlotte. He did eventually phone Charlotte's family that night to see if they knew where she was. Ali recalls the message from Paul seemed odd, and he sounded like he was under the influence of something. He found it strange that Paul would be so concerned with Charlotte only being missing a few hours. They were all immediately concerned and went to the Pollis house. When they arrived, Paul's parents were already there. The neighbors even told Charlotte's parents that Paul's parents' car had been there all night prior. The Nagy family noticed that there was some extreme cleaning being done at the home that night, which was concerning to them. Paul's father, who was at the time the deputy coroner of Trumbull County, by Ollie's recollection, seemed to be instructing his son what to say and not say. As the family looked around the property searching for clues, Charlotte's sister noticed a little shed on the Pollis' property. There had been a small amount of snow on the ground, and she noticed 2 sets of footprints that appeared to be dress shoes and boots leading to the shed. Charlotte's sister also said the doors were bulging on the shed and it was locked with a padlock. When the Nagy family asked Paul for a key to see what was inside, he refused. Ollie said the next day his brother returned and chopped the padlock off with an axe, and it appeared everything had inexplicably been moved to one side and the doors were no longer bulging. The police were called, and Paul's father seemed to be in charge of things by what the Nagys saw. As it started to sink in that their loved one was actually missing, the Nagy family started to get very suspicious towards Paul. Ali recalls that about a month before Charlotte went missing, his sister phoned him one night and asked them to bring ice cream over. Ollie and his wife arrived, and Charlotte was there with her children, but Paul was upstairs asleep. As the 3 were visiting, Charlotte said something unsettling to Ollie. She asked him if something happened to her, would he raise her kids? She also wanted him to give the children her boxes of Princess House crystal or sell them and give them the money and say the money was from their mother if she was gone. As you can imagine, Ollie was very concerned at this question. He asked Charlotte if something was wrong or if she was being abused by Paul, and she downplayed it and assured him that everything was fine. Another thing concerning was Paul's list of alibis for the day that Charlotte was discovered missing. Paul listed several places where he was with his children, and everyone interviewed either didn't see Paul at all or didn't see the children with him. He did appear to drop off Charlotte's prescription at the pharmacy, but never picked it up. The scrapyard Paul said he went to was actually closed that day. Also, Paul went to the laundromat the morning after Charlotte went missing. The person working at the laundromat was a relative of Ollie's wife, and she said the comforter Paul brought in appeared to have a large, dark red stain on it. When he left the comforter in the washing machine, Paul was adamant that no one be allowed near the machine. Paul left, and as the worker looked out the window, she said the children were not with him. The idea of Paul looking at possible houses to buy didn't make sense either. Neither Paul nor Charlotte worked and lived on welfare, so the idea of them purchasing a house seemed very unlikely. A neighbor of the couple said she saw Paul the day he was supposed to be running errands. She said he had their car backed up to the front of their house and all the doors and trunk were open. The car was filled with boxes and bags, and the children were not inside the vehicle. Also, according to Ollie, soon after her disappearance, Paul Pollis had a yard sale and sold all of Charlotte's belongings. As the police were investigating the disappearance, they wanted Paul to come in for a polygraph exam. He used the excuse he didn't have a vehicle, so one of Charlotte's brothers offered to drive him there, and Paul accepted. However, when the day arrived, Paul went missing. He left behind a note talking about how difficult it was being a suspect and complaining about the way he was being treated. Looking back now, Ollie did read the note and said it appeared to almost be a confession note of someone who had committed a crime. No one knows for a fact where or what Paul was doing those 3 months he disappeared. Ollie's opinion is he was being kept at his attorney's house the entire time, out of sight. When Paul arrived back, he was arrested and charged with obstructing official business. However, the judge eventually dismissed the charges, saying that he had a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. He also said Paul had cooperated by speaking with them and initially allowing a search of his home. Weeks after the disappearance, Charlotte's family was alerted by a relative late at night that happened to be driving by that the police were at the Pollis' house. The Girard County PD was also contacted, and the family discovered that the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation were there spraying luminol looking for any presence of blood in the house and the car. There was a spot of blood found in the trunk of the couple's vehicle. It was discovered to not be animal, but before the sample could be further tested, it was accidentally destroyed. There was also blood found in the hallway of the Pollis' house. Paul's mother insisted it was menstrual blood, so it wasn't tested. He learned that Paul's father was telling the police where they could and couldn't spray. Why was Paul's family allowed to be there during the investigation, yet it seems Charlotte's family was not even made aware of the search? I will take the time to mention a few other things that Ollie told me about the disappearance that are very noteworthy. First off, he actually believes that Charlotte was possibly being poisoned in the weeks before her disappearance. He said that Paul would have Charlotte drink milk at bedtime. Charlotte was never much of a milk drinker in the weeks before her disappearance. She did start complaining of feeling ill and tired all the time. Ali said she was to see a doctor the week after she disappeared to try to get some answers. Of course, she never made it to that appointment. Ali also recalls that a few weeks after Charlotte disappeared, there was a 9-foot by 13-foot area of concrete floor dug up at Paul Pollis' parents' garage. He said they refused to explain what work was being done, citing it was their own personal business. Soon after, they had the area filled in with more concrete. To his knowledge, this area has never been searched. There were many concerning things that happened as far as the police investigation into Charlotte's disappearance. Ollie said after Charlotte went missing, Paul had scratches from his elbow to his wrist. Paul claimed he got them installing a hot water tank, but Ollie said there was no recent installation of one at the house. Paul then said he got them installing drywall at the house, but Ali said that wasn't true either because he had been the one to help Paul install the drywall. Police took photos of the scratches on Paul's arms, but not long after, the photos disappeared. About a month later, when the Nagy family went back to the Pollis' house to grab some things for Layla, who was staying with them, Ali noticed some disturbing things and took photos of them. He saw what appeared to be blood splatter on the kitchen ceiling, master bedroom, pillow on the couch, the curtains on the back door, and on a blanket in their hutch. Ali gave a copy of the pictures to the police for their investigation. The police's copy of the pictures go missing soon after. Being focused on his sister's disappearance, Ali mistakenly then gives the original photos to the Girard police. Those photos have now gone missing as well. Another very surprising thing they discovered at the Pollis home after Charlotte went missing was found in the bedside table of the couple's bed. It was divorce papers that Charlotte had apparently had drawn up. This seemed to even surprise the people in Charlotte's family. Apparently, the situation in the Pollis' house was more serious than anyone had realized. The family then were curious if Paul had seen the divorce papers. In the years after, there seemed to be no real advancement or leads in the case. When Charlotte went missing, her daughter Layla stayed with the Nagys, while the Pollises raised the couple's son Aiden. The daughter appeared to have witnessed something unsettling around the time her mother went missing. She was now terrified of black trash bags. She told the Nagys, as well as the police and many others, that Grandpa helped Daddy hurt Mommy and put her in trash bags. In 1995, it was reported in the media that Layla Pollis had went missing. She even had a Charlie Project missing persons page. Ali did explain that he got his parents and Layla out of the area to protect her. Charlotte's father was determined not to let what happened to his daughter happen to his granddaughter. Paul was trying to get custody of Layla, and the Nagys had custody, so before they could be served with those papers, they fled the area. They made the sacrifice to hide out to protect their grandchild and returned several years later. Paul Pollis' parents had continued to raise the couple's son Aiden since Charlotte's disappearance. In Ali's quest to find out what happened to his sister, he tried everything he could think of to get Charlotte's case more attention. He contacted all the major talk shows and news programs in hopes they would air the case, but had no luck. Then he decided to contact his congressman, Jim Traficant, and ask for help on the matter. Representative Traficant was so amazing in helping with the case. He dedicated time and resources to it and wrote a letter to the television show Unsolved Mysteries asking them to air Charlotte's case, which they did. Although Representative Traficant has since passed away, Ali is still so grateful for all the help he gave to bring attention to his sister's case. Paul Pollis' interview on the Unsolved Mysteries segment was memorable to say the least. He was interviewed and claimed to not know what happened to his wife. Several direct questions were posed to him about the disappearance, but his answers seemed less than forthcoming. When asked about the reason he and his parents were deep cleaning the house the morning of Charlotte's disappearance, his flippant response was,
"I'll clean. I live there. I'd like to live in a clean house."
He also stated the reason for his mysterious disappearance shortly after his wife went missing was basically due to lack of public support and the thought he was responsible for his wife going missing. Then around 1999, Ali got a really strange call. It was from an anonymous person who phoned him about 10 p.m. one night, directing him to check the dumpster near the Trumbull County Police Department before midnight when the trash would be picked up. Ali brought a friend with him and hurried over and was completely shocked at what he found. Charlotte Pollis' entire police file was thrown in the trash along with numerous others. Ali was livid as him and his friend retrieved all the files from the trash. He also immediately contacted the media to let them know the outrageous thing that had been done. He was eventually told a story that it was just a mistake made by a janitor working in the building, which Ali found pretty unbelievable. Angered at Charlotte's brother bringing the media into the matter, the PD also threatened to charge Ali with theft if he didn't return his sister's files, so he did comply. In the years since his wife's disappearance, Paul Pollis has certainly not led a quiet life. He has been in trouble with the law many times, from felony drug possession to pulling a gun on a chief of police to embezzlement of over $1 million, along with his then girlfriend. There were also a few people that Paul was connected to who died under strange circumstances, and there is speculation as to what, if any, connection Paul may have had to their deaths. I did speak with Ali again just a few days ago in preparation for the podcast to see if there had been any developments in his sister's case. Sadly, there have been none in regards to Charlotte's disappearance, but he did recount a story to me that I think you listeners will appreciate. As stated, Paul Pollis has been charged many times over the years with various crimes. Back around 2023, a warrant was issued for a failure to appear. Ali was contacted by a bounty hunter to see if he had any information on his whereabouts, and he worked with him to try and track down Paul Pollis. When they would get close to finding him, they would leave a note for Paul and mention Charlotte and her disappearance. After about a month, with Ali's assistance, they were able to locate and arrest Paul Pollis for the failure to appear warrant. When he was detained, the bounty hunters had a simple message for Paul. Ali says hi. Apparently, upon hearing that, Paul Pollis was furious. Ali also wanted me to let my listeners know that if they have any information at all about Charlotte's disappearance, that they should contact Chief John Normal at the Girard Police Department, or they can contact Ali directly and he will check it out. Well, I'm sure it doesn't surprise you to say that I definitely believe Paul Pollis is responsible for the disappearance of his wife. I also believe his family helped him to cover up the crime. Paul was known to have affairs during his marriage, so it's unclear whether he just wanted to get out of his marriage without giving up his children, or killed Charlotte in a violent rage, as he has a well-documented history of substance abuse. Perhaps Charlotte even threatened to leave, or perhaps he came across the divorce papers. It seems like the most unlikely scenario on the planet that Charlotte would be abducted by a stranger or leave the house in her pajamas, feeling very poorly with no purse or vehicle. Sadly, this case appears to be, like so many, ice cold. Ali Naji is still determined to find answers and find his sister, but the leads seem to be few and far between at this point. He has no doubt what happened to his sister, and Paul Pollis, even though having a very lengthy criminal history, is currently a free man. After so many years and so few leads, sometimes the public's interest can wane. As Ali was quoted in an article, "It's like no one really cares, but we care." There is always hope in any case that the family will get answers and that Charlotte can be restored to her family. Until that day happens in this frustrating case, it appears the person responsible for Charlotte Pollis' disappearance has made a clean getaway. That concludes the podcast on Charlotte Pollis. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. It is one word, Lost and Found Podcast. I post a new podcast every other Sunday, and as always, you can find all of my articles as well as links to my latest podcast on my website at Lost and Found Blogs. And you can contact me via email at lostandfoundpodcast@yahoo. And remember that cold cases stay cold because their story stops getting told.